All right, before I get into this really long and ranting video here, I want to state this is not a video I wanted to ever make. It's not a video I felt it was ever my place to make. But because I have been taking a stand lately, it's something I feel I owe people out there who want to ask the questions, people who love me and people who hate me that are asking the questions. And believe me, I don't care if you hate me. Doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't really affect my life. I don't even know you hate me really unless I choose to go read your comments. So can't really have that much of an effect on me. Because I'm not here for views or for subs or for making money or selling you products. So I really, if you watch my video out of hate or out of love, or just general curiosity, doesn't make any difference to me. I like the people who come to my live chats and have conversations and, can agree to disagree and can argue. I love all that stuff. I think most people know that about me already. The two things you know about me is I really don't care what other people think, and I love it when people are willing to actually get into it. I don't like pussies or I'm taking the high road or any of that shit. Don't like it at all. But like I say, I've been making a lot of videos lately where I say I am an ally to anyone who wants to address their grievances to the government. I support everyone's right to speak. I support their right to assemble. I support their right to make their voices heard. I will be an ally to anyone who wants to do that. Now, some people have even come at me with questions like, "Oh, really? Would you support NAMBLA being able to speak what they want to speak and have a right to assemble and address the government?" To that I answer, I would 100% support their right to speak and their right to assemble and their right to address the government. If they wanted to go out there and say, I don't like that the government doesn't let me diddle 14-year-olds, I have every bit of respect for their right to say it and to address the government. I also would then be the first person who would get in line to hold them while somebody branded kitty fucker on their forehead, because that would then be a consequence of how they exercised their right. And I would accept the consequences of my act of either holding them or being the one that actually branded it on their forehead. Because I would believe one way or the other about what they actually said. Having the right to speak, having the right to be heard, doesn't mean you're free of the consequences of your actions or your speech. It just means the government doesn't get to shut you up. And I will never agree with the government shutting people up. Like when BLM's doing something. If another group said, "I want to show up and shout them down," I'm like, more power to you. Whichever one wins the shouting match, you probably did a better job. If you degrade to violence, well, then whoever starts the violence is the person to blame. But you have every right to shut them down. But you don't have a right to say the government needs to step in or law enforcement needs to step in, because that is the government interfering in someone's First Amendment rights. And I will not support that, no matter who they are. Whether they are the ASPCA, which I fully support their message, except for sometimes when I get a little crazy, but that's more PETA that gets crazy, or NAMBLA or BLM or someone who I don't even agree with their message. But that brings me to the actual topic. I've got this far in here. I'm not even to the actual topic of the video yet. The video is, people have been asking me, do you actually support Black Lives Matter? Do you support their message? Because you say you support their right, that sounds like you're dancing around the issue and you don't want to address the actual message. So I feel like I should answer that question. Like I said, I have been reluctant to do so because I don't think it's my place. I don't think Black Lives Matter wants me as an ally or a friend. They don't care. That doesn't mean I won't be one to anyone who wants to speak their mind against the government, but I don't think they really want me. In fact, I know they don't, because I was told on the ground multiple times in no uncertain ways, we don't want your voice. We don't need your support. White people are co-opting BLM and we don't like it. We don't want you. We don't want you to speak. We don't want you to blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. That's not going to change the fact that I am going to support your right to do whatever you do as far as peaceful protest. But you don't want my support, you won't get it. And they didn't have it anyway. Because here's the answer to the question, do I support them? No, I don't. And it's not racist. It's sad that I have to say it's not for racist reasons. It's because I don't think their message is correct. And I think they focus too much on specific things. And I'll go into depth here on this. So put your big boy pants on here and be able to actually listen and understand what I'm saying if you want to comment on this. And believe me, I welcome comment. Love comments, like seeing it. I love seeing when there's 1,000 comments on a video, because I'm like, people got involved. Even if it's a 50% positive rate, 50% negative rate, it means people got involved. It means what I said was important. I like saying important things. But like I said, I do not support the BLM movement, because one of the things is I think it's wrong with their movement is I think they focus too much on race and that it's all racism based. I don't believe that. Now, I'm not going to counter them or disagree with them in any vocal way, because it's not my place. But if you ask me, and people do ask me, quite a few people lately have been in my videos asking me lots of things. Most of those involve, how did I get my head so far up my ass? But to answer the question that I can actually answer, I do not support them, because I do not think racism is the biggest issue. They focus on the racism. That's it. Now, I'm not going to be one of those people who go, well, there's more white people killed by the police than black, so that means racism isn't a part of it. No, because there's way more white people than there are black people. You might see twice as many white people killed, but there's 5 times as many white people. So that doesn't hold water mathematically. There's still an issue with black people getting killed by police. But I think to say that it's based on race is wrong. I'm not saying that there isn't a factor of that, but I think it's a small factor, because I remember racism. Remember, I'm in my mid-50s now. I remember racism. I remember going down to Alabama as a small child and still seeing the plaques on the water fountains in the park that said whites only fountain. And all they'd done is paint over it after it was no longer legal. But it was still a bronze plaque. So I remember racism. I remember when it was okay to be racist. And people think that, race relations is at a all-time low now and there's so much racism nowadays. That's fucking bullshit. Racism is probably 1/10 of what it was 20 years ago. The only difference is 20 years ago, the racists were a little quieter about it because it was becoming unpopular. Nowadays, we have the internet where they have anonymity. So even though there's 1/10 as many of them, they're 100 times more vocal. So it looks like there's more, but there isn't. So I think they're missing the point. The problem with police violence on blacks is actually just a problem of police violence. It is a problem of police becoming private armies for state and local governments, and not that they don't like black people. I think it's an issue that police just treat anyone that they don't consider of value like they're expendable, and they want to set an example for anyone out there that would dare step up or say something that the police don't like or that the government doesn't like. And I think they would be just as shitty to a bunch of poor white people in a trailer park in West Virginia, and I have personal experience with this, as they are to poor black people in Detroit. I think it's just a matter of the police don't respect people, period. If you're not a police officer or you're not one of the politicians or billionaires paying for their budgets and pulling their strings, they don't give a shit about you. They consider themselves mercenaries now, and their job is to control and intimidate. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin. So I think you're missing the point on that. Now, I do think this, like I said, it actually shows itself, it materializes more in poorer communities. And since there's more black people in poor communities, you're seeing it affect blacks more often. But it's not because of racism. It's because of the problems that exist in the police department today with our militarized police departments. That's the problem with the police. I think focusing on it as a race issue misses the issue entirely. And it also divides people up to where you don't have as many people on your side as you would. If you just got out there and said the police are out of control and they don't respect the citizens, blah, 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 I think a lot of people on the right and a lot of people who believe in freedom and autonomy, etc., from law enforcement would be like, you're absolutely right. And we're behind you. But you make it about race and they disagree that it's about race, so then you have a division. So that's one reason I don't support Black Lives Matter. And I'm not talking about the leadership of Black Lives Matter. Let's get that straight. I'm not talking about whoever started it, because I don't even fucking know who started it or care. I don't think the leaders of Black Lives Matter represent the actual people on the ground and the people that are actually involved any more than Wayne LaPierre represents me or any other gun owner. So I'm not talking about the leadership, I'm talking about the people. And another reason I don't support the people or the movement or the leadership or whatever is because I think they focus too much on it's a racist issue between conservative people and black people, or just white people and black people, even when you take the police out of it. They act like it's the Republican Party that's the only ones that have ever done anything bad to blacks. I disagree. I think an even bigger problem is, since racism is going away slowly but surely, I think a bigger problem is the people that are the ones that say they're the least racist, but they want to make it harder for black people to excel and easier for them to stay where they are. They want to make them more comfortable where they are instead of encouraging them to go somewhere else, and or not like leave and go somewhere else, but to achieve something loftier. Because they want them to stay right there. They want them to be a reliable voting cattle, for lack of a better word. They want to know they got this big herd of voting cattle there that they can count on in every election. And if those people got to where they were more successful and had more things, they might start saying, well, I don't want someone taking all my shit and giving it to somebody else. And I'm not saying that's the Democratic Party either, but I'm just giving you an example. So don't get mad at me if you're a Democrat and saying that you're saying we're redistributing the wealth or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But they don't cover that at all. They don't talk about, well, one of the facts you're in this situation where you find yourself on the receiving end of a militaristic police force's bad behavior is because you've allowed yourself to be turned into a fucking voting block. That one party perpetuates your misery so that you'll vote for them. You ignore that completely. That makes it really hard to pay attention to your message when you're not paying attention to this other big aspect. But that's not the biggest aspect. And I know I've been rambling a long time here, but I'm going to get to the biggest aspect here. And this is where everyone's going to hate me. And this is where everyone's going to call me a racist. Go ahead, but know beforehand when you call me a racist that I know I'm no more racist than most good people. I'm not going to say I'm absolutely not racist, because everybody's a little racist. It's inbred into us. But I know I'm not whatever you want to portray me as, so you go ahead and waste your time portraying me as something I'm not all you want. But here's where people will get mad. The main issue I have with Black Lives Matter is if it's actually about black lives and Black Lives Matter, and you don't want people that are black of color to be losing their lives because they are important, and I would agree with that 100%. But if that's your real goal, you have to deal with how most black lives are being lost. And it is true. If you're black, there is a much larger chance you will die of foul play, violence, murder than it is if you're white. That's just a reality. But it's not the police that are killing you, and it's not white people that are killing you. If it's really the lives that matter, you have to look at the lives that are lost, and you have to deal with the main reason first. Like if there's, you got 2 holes in your yard and one of them is 3 inches deep and somebody has twisted their ankle in it. The other is, 20 feet deep with spikes at the bottom and people keep falling in it and dying. And you fill in that one first, So you have to look at all the lives that are being lost in the black community. And like I say, I'm not saying this in a racist way. I'm just saying it in a mathematical reality way. You have to deal with the biggest loss. And if you got, for every 100 black men that die, let's just say, if 2 of them are killed by white men, and then 5 of them are killed by police, black or white, but 93 of them are killed by other black men, well, then that's your biggest issue. If you aren't treating black lives like they matter, how can anyone else take you seriously? And I agree, they do matter. I mean, I don't even think we can say all lives matter. People, when they say that, I'm like, well, you really can't accurately say that until all lives actually matter, or you're being dishonest. And as long as black lives don't seem to matter as much, then we can't say that honestly. So we have to deal with, why do black lives not seem to matter? And then you have to, if you do that, you have to look at Black Lives Matter and say, well, why do black lives not seem to matter when it's another black person taking that life? Is it the life that matters, or is it who takes that life that matters? Because you tend to be focusing on the 2% and the 5% and ignoring the 93%. And if your message is Black Lives Matter, you have to deal with the biggest issue against Black lives. And I'm not saying this in a racist way, because I'm not saying it's because of race. It's because of circumstance. It's because of culture. You have to start dealing with the circumstances, and you have to start dealing with the judgments or the decisions people make who are in those circumstances. But just because you're in bad circumstances doesn't mean you have to make bad decisions. Like I said, I came from a trailer park. But you have to deal with that. And you have to deal with parts of your culture that, glorify pimping and shooting other rappers and, making 20 babies with 20 different baby mamas. Anytime that, and that's actually a thing that's kind of prevalent in some poor white culture too, to have 4 or 5 babies with 5 different women. And I completely speak out against that because it's stupid. So you have to deal with your own cultural issues. If you want us to deal with the fact that, hey, racism is still a thing in the white community, we have to deal with that in our culture. But you have to deal with the negative things in your culture, or when you stand out there and say, Black Lives Matter, it doesn't have a lot of weight if you have to say Black Lives Matter only when a white person or a cop takes that life. You have to get out there and you have to stand up for black on black violence too. You have to condemn that. You have to do everything you can to stop that. Or does your message really ring true? Do you really believe, like I said, that Black lives matter? Or is it just matter who takes those lives? So in the end, that's why, even though I said I will continue to be an ally to anyone who wants to exercise their First Amendment rights, I will always be an ally to that. Doesn't mean I'll agree with your message. And until you make your message broader, I won't be able to agree with yours.